Shalom, welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Chabados of Dalmar, together with my co-host Mark Gronich of Statewide News Service, jbiztechvalley.com, and as you can see now, columnist for the Jewish Press.
Yeah, I have a column called Albany Beat, and I talk about how government relates to the Jewish community, or doesn't, as the case may be. And with a special guest, we have a return guest today. We have Senator Hugh Farley. He's the most senior member in the state legislature, or at least in the Senate.
That's right.
Welcome back to the Jewish View.
It's my pleasure to be here, and I'm honored to be here.
I feel like I've known you for your entire
For
Senate
many years,
career,
that's correct.
You started in '76 and I started in '79. So
There we go. Not
You're
many
the only
been
one.
around that long. So.
You're the only senator from Schenectady area that I've known. So.
Actually, I have the second largest district in the state now, 5 counties.
Well, Fulton, Hamilton, Schenectady,
Herkimer, and Saratoga.
and Saratoga. Okay.
It's huge.
Wow. So that's, but you get around. And
I get you out of the house a lot.
now, my birthday is November 18th.
And mine is the 21st of November.
So there you go, a few years
We're
apart.
both Scorpios.
That's right. A few years apart, though.
That's right.
So you're turning 83.
Yes.
So mazel tov.
Thank you.
So they say may you live to be 120. So that's
Well, unfortunately, I'm still in pretty good health.
you are
There you
very
go.
good health. I mean, I see you walking around, and
I
you're
rode
just-
a bicycle from Amsterdam, the Netherlands, to Bruges, Belgium. I was the oldest guy to ever do it with this group called, with my daughter and
How
son.
recently?
This past year.
Oh yeah.
Pretty good.
And how many miles is that?
About 100.
Yeah, beautiful.
And with cars whizzing by you, it's
Yeah,
not,
no,
Better
it's
than
kind
me.
of dangerous.
You're a better man than I am. I love bicycling, but not 100 miles.
I
so.
hadn't ridden a bicycle in 35 years, I think, when I first got on it there.
You're amazing. That's phenomenal.
I was still in pretty good shape. thank
That's
God.
great. That's
Need
great.
a lot of energy even to be a senator.
Well, now I don't
It
feel.
keeps you
Keeps you
moving.
busy.
Now I don't have to feel like I have to ask you, are you going to run for re-election?
Well, we
you know.
don't announce that is right away, but as far as I know,
I can imagine you would. So.
well, we'll see what happens.
You know.
You take everything day by day.
Oh, of course.
Incidentally, I do have some news
Yeah.
that you'd be interested
All right,
in,
there you go.
Rabbi. My son Bob, who you know, who was with the counsel's office
In the state senate.
in the state senate, is going to be chief of staff for Senator Simcha Felder, who was
Really?
Yeah, Simcha.
Oh, that's very
Really?
interesting.
Simcha is one of the finest men I've ever known, and of course, very close with my son. And of course, we have a Jewish heritage. My wife is of Jewish extraction, and Bob is going to be the chief of staff for Simcha, who caucuses with us.
Yeah, sure.
A very
Well,
fine man.
Well, now we have to get you to that guttural sound of a ch. Simcha Felder.
Simcha.
Simcha.
I-
Okay, but that's fine. You can say Simcha if you want. That's fine.
He's
But-
such a gentleman.
I'm sorry. I just had
love
to
him.
tease you. I tease. I
It's
joke.
excellent. All
Okay.
right, so that's good news.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Wow, that's great. And I know Bob is very.
You know Bob?
Yeah, very well, because he was also on the Schenectady.
He was
county,
chairman. He was chairman of the Schenectady Legislature. at
County
one time.
legislature, right?
The county legislature, and then went into the minority, and used to get more votes than I did. He was a very popular vote getter. And Bob was. I'm very proud of him as a son. He's always been a very fine young man.
Wow. So
I can never say a word against him as a boy growing up.
No.
That's unusual.
and he is. I'll tell you, I've known him
He's
for
a
a
brilliant
long time.
lawyer
and he's
too. a good-
absolutely
good-
phenomenal, and I'm very glad to have known him and you.
Thank you.
So, well, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Well, I
That's how
appreciate he's more like his mother. I think he looks like his mother, to be honest with you. And I have a daughter who's a very successful lawyer, also an intellectual property lawyer, and she looks like me. The Irish have an
Well, she's
expression,
with the-
that's lucky if the daughter looks like the father and the son looks like the mother.
She's with the Heslin, Rothenberg,
She's the lead
Farley.
partner.
Yeah, lead partner. in
Heslin,
that, yeah.
Rothenberg, Farley, over 40 lawyers,
Right,
very
right.
successful.
Well, that's a local
Intellectual,
firm?
yeah.
Intellectual property, that's patent, copyrights, and trademarks.
Mhm.
She's one of the more renowned in the United States.
Now you're from Watertown.
That's where I was born.
Now there was a Mary Farley who just won a state Supreme Court
I
seat,
was
and she's from
supporting-
Gouverneur.
That's right. Of no relation, but
Really?
one
Oh.
that I supported. And a lot of people thought she led the ticket.
That's right. She got
She
more
got
votes. She
More
got-
votes than anybody. Mary is an excellent candidate, and I
and
spoke with
judge
her.
now.
She's just, and incidentally, St. Lawrence County is the largest geographic
Geographic.
county in the
That's right.
state,
right.
and they would have been without a Supreme Court judge if she had not got elected.
Right. Land-wise, it's the largest county
That's
in the
correct.
state. Right.
And she's,
And Rockland's the smallest, and Yates County.
I think
Yates and Rockland
I think
battle
well,
it out.
Schenectady's one of the smaller, but I
Yes.
think the smallest county is New York County. I think.
Oh,
Okay,
Yeah, you
which
got
is
one up,
Manhattan.
Mark.
Which is Manhattan. So.
that's correct.
Yeah,
There you
okay.
go. See, Mark, someone won up.
Well, you know what, I'm gonna
No,
go
I-
I'm going to research this now. You
Oh,
know that?
yeah.
Well, do you know that Manhattan Island is not really an island because there's a piece of Manhattan that's connected to the Bronx on the other side of the East River?
I
So-
was born in Watertown, but we were living in the Bronx.
Yes.
In
So.
Riverdale.
Oh, Riverdale.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, that's our schmoozing here. So
Get down to business.
tell us what committees are you?
Well, I am the vice president pro tem,
Right.
which is the number 3 in leadership, right behind the majority leader and the deputy majority leader.
Mhm.
And I chair. The only committee I chair is the library committee, which
Mhm.
I've chaired my entire career, and every piece of library legislation for my entire career has been mine. But I have chaired the banking committee for many years.
Right.
And I chaired the Environmental Conservation Committee for
Mm-hmm.
many years, and I was the first chairman of the Aging Committee. And I was very proud of some of the stuff I did in aging.
Isn't that interesting? When you were young, you were chair of the aging.
They used to complain I was too young to
Yeah.
be chairman of the...
So I says, all right, I'll get older.
That's right. They'd say, you're pretty young. But I founded hospice. I'm the father of
Really?
hospice for the whole nation.
Mhm.
Really, I didn't know that. Tell us
First in
about
the-
that. Tell us about-
First in the
one.
nation. And in my first year in the Senate, I passed hospice, and the New York Times did an editorial, kind of a backwards one, saying the most significant thing done this year was done by an obscure
Yeah.
freshman senator from Schenectady, Senator Hugh Farley, in founding hospice.
Well, I would put that on that New York Times piece on your website and keep it there forever.
I've enjoyed it. I also founded Respite, if you've heard of that program.
Yes,
That was
sure.
my idea. And I started the community services program and many things in aging.
Oh yeah, yeah. No,
That's when I was young and vigorous.
that's.
Well, that is a big issue because they say America is getting aged. I mean,
Oh,
the
yeah.
baby boomers now are all seniors.
That's correct.
But there are more centenarians alive now than ever before.
Fastest growing age group is those over 100.
Wow.
Small market that they start from, but
You know, so there's some things here that say, April 16th is Library Assistance Day. Did you create that, or?
yes, that's a piece of legislation that we passed, making that annually, that assistance day.
On April
That was
16th.
mine.
Well, after you pay your taxes on the 15th, you need the assistance of the library, the free
That's
assistance
true.
there. And then
They all show up. Incidentally, of all the constituent groups, the library people, they're well-read,
Yes.
they're informed, and they show up, and I'll tell you, just don't answer them with a... I have one person that does nothing but answer librarians because they need a complete answer.
It's like a school teacher, you know.
Yes.
You know
want a
what they
complete
talk about
answer.
librarians? We talked about, I remember last time, but I think it's an important point. Many times people get talk about the tax bill on April 15th. Hey, what am I paying, for library, just for a book? And we do have so many librarians. I mean, we have the head of the Albany Library, Guilderland, Bethlehem Library. So we have a lot of librarians on here, and I, point that out to them. And, it's just amazing. I mean, maybe to me, I'm sure to our viewers, a library is not just about books anymore. You think library, take out a book. And they really expanded their services.
The late Senator Javits, who I admired and thought was one of the finest senators that ever served, he called them the cathedrals of learning.
It's interesting.
And
Yeah.
they are, and they're also for the elderly. They're a focus point for getting online and doing so many things. The libraries are a very exciting part of my, as I said, they're a labor of love for
Now,
me.
when is Library Week?
It's in the spring,
Okay.
and they all show up.
That's because that's their lobby day, or
Yes.
the week that they lobby, that
That's
they
correct.
come up and ask for more money, and educate the legislators on why it's needed and how libraries are changing.
Historically, libraries were the first to be cut and the last to be funded.
That's right.
And today, I've been trying to say they should be part of the education system and the education budget, because they are the education for the masses.
Yeah,
And
that-
we have been very good with libraries. The Senate, I'll be honest with you, my Senate has been in the forefront fighting for library aid.
Mm-hmm. So then they have also Friends of Library Week. That was created in 2007. Now, is there a group, Friends of the Library, that's
Yes,
a nonprofit group? Is that what it is?
They are people, they're regular citizens
Yeah.
that are devoted to libraries.
Because they don't pay enough money in taxes, so they want to give more money just for the libraries.
No, I think that they're people that are truly interested in the libraries themselves,
Right.
and trying to promote them in their communities. You see, the libraries all started out in these in the cities. And these cities are being vacated by so many of the affluent and so forth, and they're having terrible struggles financially, and they can't fund these libraries. And consequently, they fall on hard times. Many of the small cities, Gloversville, which is one of my cities, they created a library district. They have their own separate tax things because the city couldn't fund them anymore.
You know, see, you're right. I never thought of it that way. But it's just like who needs the library the most are the poor children.
That's
a rich
right.
child has their own computer, has their own internet, can buy any book they want. And it's the poor districts that really need the library more. It's
Absolutely.
interesting. I never thought of it that way.
And then
like
the
you're bringing out.
elderly who don't have that opportunity either.
Now, when you go to, there are certificates there that are at your disposal. There are proclamations and resolutions, which are
Citations.
and citations. So when you go to a library event or library week or any of these special weeks, do you normally pass a resolution or hand out a citation or
Oh, yes.
do something like that?
Yes, I do. Generally speaking, I give it for an award something that they've done. I use it as something that's significant. I don't consider it just something that you do in a meaningless way. I think it demeans the whole process if you do it that way. And consequently, let me just say, we have such a thing in the Senate as bullet money for school districts and so forth that got shortchanged in the distribution. I take some of that bullet aid and give it to every one of my libraries. Every single
How
library.
many libraries do you have in your district?
I have
Approximately.
about 30-something.
Okay.
If you could believe it.
Wow.
A lot of little small town libraries, and they are so appreciative of that.
So because I was listening to, there was an assemblywoman I was listening to, and she said, "Oh yeah, we just do this all the time. Oh yeah, this is something we
I
we
don't
have
agree
a-"
with that.
And that's she made it sound frivolous. Is what it was.
I don't think it's frivolous,
So-
and I don't think my job is frivolous.
Right,
and I think it's very serious. And I appreciate so many people, the effort that they put in. Librarians are not the highest paid people in the world. And again, they provide a great service.
So they need recognition
Yes, they do.
when it's appropriate and when it's worthy, right? Not just any time.
That's right.
Okay. So I don't know if we didn't talk about this earlier, but can I ask you your thoughts on the Sheldon Silver trial, or
Well,
the overall?
As I was speaking to the rabbi earlier, maybe it's just my personality. It's very hard for me to step on somebody when they're down.
Right.
For instance, I'll give you an example of somebody that was convicted, which I think was really terrible. in Senator Tom Libous, who's on death's door. He's very, very sick man, and takes chemotherapy almost every week, and hanging on. And he wasn't forthright when talking to the FBI about his son. And I can understand that. Apparently he said he lied to the FBI, and they convicted him. And you know, if he has to go to prison because of all the health problems he got, more likely he'll die. So I feel badly. I feel badly for Speaker Silver, and it's hard for me to step on anybody when they're down.
And I'm not asking.
That's just my.
And I'm not asking you to. I'm
Okay.
just asking you, just generally speaking, when they talk about this culture, and they talk about the.
I don't agree with it. I'll be very honest with you. Many of the people that I serve with are the most selfless people that I know. I had a wonderful job as a law professor. I started as an assistant, became a full professor, well paid, and loved teaching. I had a great job. And I'll tell you, my wife thought I was nuts to go into the Senate because it takes an awful lot away from the family, and you give an awful lot. And many of these people that serve are very selfless, good people. The vast majority of them. I was mentioning Simca Felder.
No,
I don't know of a finer human being.
But and you know, I have a list of legislative bad apples, and there's been 50 since
It's like
1976.
society.
But you know, that's right.
There's
It's like
bad
society.
apples everywhere.
So I'm not saying that anyone should be kicked when they're down at all. So don't get me wrong
I
with
understand.
that. But I'm just talking about, generally speaking, that should people. I mean, I don't think if these legislators got paid more, that they're going. It's in their soul if they're going to do something wrong, whether they're paid more or they're not paid more. And I'm just wondering, you know, if you feel that same way, or if you feel that.
I do think that they should be adequately paid. Otherwise, you'd only have wealthy people there, or somebody that didn't need to. You need a cross section of society, and I think they should be well paid.
But you're happy with the salary?
Yes. Well, I'm not in it for the money, and
Right.
I live a modest life, and I'm very pleased with my salary, and but by and large, I think that particularly members of the Assembly, there's probably 40% of them that get no Lulu quote.
Right.
They make $79,000, and if they're from New York City, that is not a very high wage for
You know, Senator, something, we're on the Jewish View Cell, and I'm a rabbi, so I have to say something from Jewish law. They taught us in rabbinical school, there's 4 big major parts of Jewish law, not to get into that here. And so it's a little bit of a story. Then they say, they asked a candidate and said, do you know the 5th part? Thinking, oh, yeah, I learned 4. Well, you know, maybe something I don't even know. He says, you know, the 5th part is common sense. And that's a little bit what I always think about. You know, maybe the FBI, they got exactly the person on a technicality, you know, it's the law.
Yeah.
But a little bit, like you say, that's what I'm saying, a little common sense when you prosecute somebody. You know, did they do something horrendous? You know, use your prosecution skills on somebody that's really did a crime and not just didn't dot the I and didn't sign their name right, or
I
that
agree.
kind of
Good
idea.
for you, Rabbi. I couldn't agree with you more. The thing that bothers me most about it, I think there's a perception out there that the legislators, the senators and the assemblymen, they're all crooks. You know, throw them out, all of them. Well, you know, that's not true, and you have to look at an individual. I like to think I've served with honor and integrity. I do the very best I can to try to do that, and I think many of my colleagues do even more so.
No, and I agree. And I'm just, you know, because I've been around the game, you know, around here for a long time. It breaks my heart when I see, Malcolm Smith going to prison, and did you see the latest? He wants to postpone it again because he wants to take a course in what it means to be in prison before he goes to prison. Yeah. And they say, well, go to prison, you'll find out what it means, and you don't need a course to find out. But he wants to keep delaying it, you know. But he's someone who didn't do something right. John Sampson's another one who didn't do something right, you know, on the Senate side. But, it goes back in the assembly, you got more members, so you got more problems there. I'm just saying in general, is the system a pay-to-play type of system, or is it not?
I
Generally
don't think it is.
speaking,
Generally speaking, it is not.
Okay.
I think that there's the perception that is that way, but I don't think it is. Now, does somebody have some influence because they are where they are? Look what Joe Bruno did for the Capital Region.
Oh, absolutely.
As
Oh.
majority leader. My gosh, every
Second to
place you
none,
look.
yeah, right.
The airport,
Right.
the train station,
Right.
one thing after another. I mean, he used his influence to promote his district.
Yeah.
I remember somebody was once saying to me, the biggest thing we could do for Schenectady's economic development is to have Joe Bruno move to Schenectady. I mean, gee.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, someone told me the story of how the airport got rebuilt, is they were in a leaders meeting, and Joe Bruno wanted the airport. Sheldon Silver, the assembly speaker at the time, wanted something for his district, so they said, okay, you will give you money for this, we'll give you money for this, and they traded
It could
the
be,
two.
but
And-
it was disgraceful, that airport at Albany,
Yeah.
in a major metropolitan area.
Right. It looked
And,
like a municipal
so many things.
land.
Senator Bruno did so many things
Yes, he did.
that are very worthwhile, and I was glad to see him acquitted.
Yeah,
because
yeah,
I think he meant well.
Mhm.
Did he push the envelope? Perhaps. But he didn't. In his own mind, he was doing the very best he could.
And do you think that most of the legislators try to push the envelope and get away with what
I think not. They usually they don't have the wherewithal to push the envelope. To be very honest with you, I try to be very careful in that area.
Oh, you don't even come close to the edge in
Well,
what you do.
I do the best I can.
but you
I'm
don't-
sure that people could criticize any. It's a tough business.
But I get the sense
You've
that
got to realize there's a significant group that wants you to fail, that wants you to be defeated, that wants you out of there.
But I get the sense that these prosecutors, federal prosecutors, go after the people who are at the head of the legislature. Because way back when, Fred Orenstein was the Democratic leader, and what was it, a 12-year battle or a 7-year battle with the courts, and then the charges were dropped.
That's right.
And
Well,
then he
was
stayed in as Democratic leader during that whole time, and another 4 years after.
Fred Orenstein's a remarkable guy. I think he's in his 90s.
Yeah.
And he's still functioning and lobbying and working.
He comes up and he has a home in
God,
Columbia.
he's incredible.
He has a home in Columbia County.
Does he?
Yeah. So he comes up.
He's something else.
So-
I always say to him, I want to be like you when I grow up.
There you
No,
go.
I just
But
always
then
felt-
but then Mel Miller, was also someone who was charged but then acquitted, but he gave up his speakership. They go after
Maybe
the
make a
top
name for
people.
themselves.
Well, but it brings down the whole institution.
Yeah, it's a perception. When I came in, the Senate was very highly respected and so forth, and a lot of that has changed. I
Yeah.
see an awful lot of bitterness out there. The Tea Party is an example of something I think they want to throw everybody out.
Mm.
And,
But we don't have too many Tea Party people in the state legislature.
well,
We have a few, but I don't think we have too many. I think there are some in the assembly, but they're in such a minority.
You're
that
right.
know.
But they're a factor out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just, so do you see how this perception could be fixed at all? Do you think about this enough where you could?
It's difficult to get good people to even run for office today because they don't care for the public disclosure of everything. For instance, I have to disclose everything that I have, and like you say, with Amy Poland putting everything in her husband. If my wife is a very private person, and she's shy and a very good person, I mean, if she knew how I had to expose everything, she'd say, "Get out of this business," But I do. It's out there for everybody to look at.
But you have to know where to go to look. You just can't put in your name in the search engine and your financial disclosure will come up. I mean, you really have to go through J. Cope, the public integrity.
But there's an awful lot of people that don't want to do that. You know, there's a lot of people that are private in their persons and so forth, and it's difficult. People don't want to give up that.
So you own stock?
Do I? Yes, I
Yeah.
do.
So if you had stock where you had to take a vote, would you go to your majority leader and say, "Look, I think this might be a
No,
conflict
well,
of interest"?
the only time I ever asked to be excused from voting on was once in all my years in the legislature, was when I'm a professor and I
Yeah.
was in TIA CREF, which is the pension program for the university. And what they did, they were making TIA CREF just like the state pension where they contributed to it. I felt that was not appropriate for me because I was teaching at that time.
Uh-huh.
And I asked to be excused from voting on that.
Well, you
'cause
were-
it would have benefited me.
You taught business law at University at Albany.
That's correct.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you now, do you get a pension from?
I have a TIA is a different type of pension. It's you can contribute to it, and at that time, then the state started contributing
Yeah.
to it, and but it's a lump sum,
Right.
and you can draw from it. And when I retired from the university, which I have, that lump sum is there. I have to take out of it every year because of my age, but actually that belongs to me.
Sure.
And that would be for part of my estate. So, but I don't take a pension from that.
So you're not taking, and even
My heirs will probably get it.
and even from your law school teaching, or
No.
from when you were a lawyer. Do you have another income besides the Senate income?
No, that's
No.
it. No.
So you're not a double dipper like they talk about.
Well,
people.
yeah, I have the state pension,
Right.
Which so I would be considered a double dipper because I had the TIA CREF and the state pension. I was in that for 40 some odd years,
Right.
43
Well,
years.
You deserve to have, enjoy the money that you put in so much time. It's not like you did it for that reason either.
I know.
So.
The thing of it is, if I died in office, my wife would not get my pension, which is that's something that should be changed. There's a number of senators that are older that are taking their pension.
Yes.
Because if they died in office, their spouse wouldn't get the pension.
Really?
That's not right.
No, you're right, and that's why that whole issue that the media makes a big deal about this, and I think I roll my eyes every time I read
In all fairness,
these.
the editorial board, when I took my pension, they said that the law should be changed. In other words, it would hold it in abeyance, that, for instance, if you
Yeah.
died in office, that your spouse.
But then if you sponsored the bill, they'd say that you're a conflict of interest.
I know.
So you can't sponsor the bill, so who's going to sponsor the bill?
Well, I think it should be done in the budget or something, because it only, you have to be 65, I
Right.
believe, and you have to be, 65, and you have to have reached the qualified number of years and so forth.
I want to get to some of the legislation that.
I'd want to mention something
Yeah.
about the election.
Sure.
We had a huge race in Binghamton,
Yes.
Broome County, where we won. That's Senator Libis's old seat, where we won a huge
Yeah.
victory. 75%. I've never seen
Well, now we
anything.
have to figure out how to pronounce Akshar, is it?
That's close enough.
Akshar? Because he's going to be isn't he alphabetically, maybe Adabo and Akshar? You know how when they call the roll?
Amador.
Oh.
Let's see.
No, Amador's after Akshar.
That's right. He may be the first one when they read the call
so,
the roll.
So that this clerk is going to have to know how to pronounce
his name. That's true.
That's the only thing I thought of.
Yeah.
You had some bills that last session that I wanted to ask you about, and if you
Sure.
don't know, this is not rehearsed, so.
That's all right.
Relates to the acquisition of abandoned cemetery plots.
Yeah, that's a good piece of legislation, and I'll to speak of another one that I'd like to promote. The cemetery has got these lots that have been abandoned. This would allow the cemetery retrieve those and sell them and use them again.
But who runs the cemetery?
The cemetery does.
Who, I mean, is there an owner of a cemetery?
Yes, it's
or is
usually,
there,
it could be the Catholic Church or the temple that has that.
Sure.
There's-
because down in, New York City, it's a whole different system. They
I
have
know.
these huge tracts of land that go on for miles and miles, and there are different societies in different
Incidentally,
sections. Did it
60s
get passed, or?
I don't know, Rabbi. Can Jews be cremated?
No,
No,
not supposed to.
no.
No.
From the
60% of the people are being cremated today.
Really, I
Yeah.
didn't know that
Yeah.
percentage.
Yeah, it's in the 60s.
Because of the price? A lot of times because
No.
the funerals are very expensive.
I think he might have hit I think it's cheaper to be cremated.
Oh, is
I
it?
think.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
Well,
right,
the-
a lot of people-
I
Oh.
don't intend to be cremated.
Okay.
My wife doesn't want to be.
Ed
Sure.
O'Brien, the anchor who just passed away,
Yeah.
the morning anchor, he was cremated.
Was he? Yeah, an awful lot of them are.
You know.
I didn't know that.
Did this bill pass the Senate,
I think it did, yes.
but
I
not
don't-
the Assembly, or?
That's right.
Okay.
I don't know how
Okay.
it's current. I have another bill
Yes.
with, and I heard you mentioning Assembly Fahey,
Yeah.
that would allow a student who is being in trouble, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
the only thing that the superintendent or the principal has to do is to expel him or to throw him out. This would allow him, the principal or the superintendent, to give them public service, to clean up the graffiti or
Oh,
something.
uh-huh.
Because some of these kids, these bad apples, they like the idea that they're thrown out of school,
It's interesting.
suspended.
That's a good idea.
It's
It
a
is a
badge
good
of honor
idea.
sometimes,
And it put them to work.
Yeah, like the
And-
prisoners. I mean, you go in the legislature, you know who cleans the marble flooring in the legislative office building? The prisoners.
Really?
Yeah, I go there, after hours, and I'm going through there.
Really?
And they're chained and they're roped off, and it's amazing. But that's who cleans the
I
Capitol.
remember I
floor.
was at the Capitol in North Carolina with the governor when I was president of the Council of State Governments, and all the people that were working there and so forth. I got very friendly with them, and somebody came up and said, they're all convicts. I thought they were very interesting people.
Yeah. Well, they are in a different way. Okay.
All right, listen, we're out of time, but you're such a great guest. We're going to have you back again
I
because
enjoyed it.
we want you to be with health. That's the main thing. You may be old, but you have a young at heart.
Well,
You
thank
used to have a lot of
You're
things.
my kind of guy, Rabbi.
There you go. We're both 29 years old.
That's right.
That's all.
Well,
You
keep
have a
up the
lot
good
to
work. Much success.
I feel good, and that's half the battle.
There
That's
you
right.
go. Thank you.